Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Unwokeable Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Owsley, and I am joined today by Alvin Lui of Courage is a Habit. He is president of Courage is a Habit. He's a political refugee from California who moved his family here to the Midwest only to find the same ideologies that ruined his home and that are now spreading across the country. And he is in the fight in a red state as a blue transplant to help parents and grandparents and all guardians of all types fight the battle of the woke monster in schools from all angles. And I'm really excited to have you here, Alvin. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thank you, Mark. I really appreciate it. I've looked up to your work. You do amazing work, the way you put things, their information. So it's an honor to be here.
Well, I don't know about that, but I do know that you're doing great work and you're very organized. I brought Alvin here today because Alvin is doing, like I just said, great work in terms of what he's hitting right now, which is really important in Oklahoma. And we're going to dive right into this.
Let's go right into it.
First, Alvin, what is SEL? Why do we have to be worried about this? I mean, isn't this just trying to help kids?
Yeah.
You know,
Sure.
emotionally and be able to cope and
Cool.
have good character. What's the problem with SEL?
Uh, Social emotional learning, the easiest way to describe it at a high level is that it is a Trojan horse disguised as mental health. The reason why it fools so many parents is that it hijacks terms that you and I would normally have no problem with. I will give you two examples. The reason why SEL is so manipulative is that it will use character traits such as, first example, responsible decision making. Who doesn't want that? Even though you and I, Mark, we don't personally know each other except just on each other's work. If I told you that, I have a 9-year-old daughter and I'm teaching her personal responsibility, even though you and I don't know each other, you can make a pretty good guess on what you think I'm trying to teach her at 9. You're not going to think, oh, he must be teaching her not to drink and drive, right? But if I said my son is 22 years old and I'm trying to teach him responsible decision-making, personal responsibility, you're probably not going to think I'm trying to teach him not to throw food on the floor, right?
Right.
I'm going to teach them things like don't drink and drive or, about finance and about getting into debt, things like that. Social emotional learning, the way they define something like responsible decision-making is if you're a white child, they will put you on this 12-year brainwashing program because SEL starts from kindergarten, first grade on, that by the time you become a voting age, you will vote for things like reparations for slavery because that is responsible decision-making. If you're white, you need to give up certain things because it's white privilege, things of that nature. You need to be an ally. That's responsible decision-making. First example. Second example, they talk a lot about empathy. Same example. You and I, even though we've just met, if I'm saying I'm teaching my 9-year-old empathy, you're going to surmise what it is. And we're going to be pretty close. If I say I'm teaching my 22-year-old empathy, you're going to surmise it's something different than 9. When they talk about empathy, it'll be like they'll start moving the children's mindset to things such as if you're a girl and a boy comes into your locker room and bathroom, if you feel uncomfortable, you need to have empathy. You need to seek first to understand before being understood. You have implicit internalized biases. You see, they take terms that nobody would object to because they assume that the terms are the same, but that's not what's happening. So again, obviously, social emotional learning is very layered and complicated, which is by design. But at its most easiest way to explain is that it's disguised as mental health so they can slowly change the viewpoint and culture of children to think the country's systematically racist, oppress and oppressor model. The transgender movement is huge. The transgender cult driving is huge under social emotional learning. And it's all out there. This is not, Alvin Lui.
Yeah, this isn't a conspiracy theory.
No, this is all out in CASEL. For those you want to look at, it's a CASEL. That's castle.org. They drive that. If you look at the front page, all wonderful things. Then you start digging deeper into the different books that they quote and the different things. And it's all just critical race theory, cultural responsive teaching, which is just another way of teaching critical race theory. I will say one thing about this, and then we can kind of move on to this. But when parents go, "Are you teaching critical race theory?" What do they always say?
Oh, that's a college level course.
Oh, no,
We're not college level course, Al. We're not teaching.
We're not teaching it. I will say this: they are telling you the truth. They are not teaching it, except California. California is the only state so far that I know that has an official critical race theory course. It's called ethnic studies. You have to take it before you graduate. So the other 49, 48 states, they are telling you the truth. They are not teaching it as a theory. It would be okay, if
they taught it as a theory. Right.
Because you can say, I don't want them to take critical race theory. I'd rather take another theory. It's fifth period critical race theory. Or you can take another course, an alternative, like elective, that kind of thing. That's okay, because it's just a theory. They're not. What they're doing is they're using culturally responsive teaching and infusing the critical race theory into the school culture as if it was true.
Yep.
It's one thing if I teach Buddhism, let's say, right? If I teach that as a religion, not the religion, not a belief system. If I say, I'm going to teach a Buddhism class, and you might learn something from it, you might take something from it, you might don't like any of it. That's a class. But it's different if I say, you must believe it as a faith. That is what K through 12 is doing. They're using critical race theory, not as a theory, but as a point of truth.
Right. They're practicing it, right? Because we all know that, we all know that CRT, right, has a theory and a practice model, right? Well, that goes with all the critical theories, right? You cannot be a good critical theorist unless you are understanding the theory and practicing it at the same time.
The practice is culturally responsive teaching. And that's how they teach. That's how all the teachers coming through these colleges, reading these books, anti-racism training, the books, the seminars, the Black Lives Matter posters, everything. I will give you one example that even if as a parent, you don't know anything about this. So forget all the terminology, SEL, CRT, just wipe it from your mind for a second. I'm going to give you one example that will explain to you what the social emotional learning model is. Okay. Let's say Mark and I decided to start a school. This is a private school, right? And Mark and I when we start the school, we're going to say, hey, we want to raise master mathematicians, world-class mathematicians. That's what Mark and I are going to do. But we don't want to tell the parents that, because if we're so niche, they may not sign up for our school. We want as many, sign up as possible. So we present our curriculum. We present history and science and art and all those things, and they come sign up for our schools. And then parents start signing up for our schools. But throughout the hallways, we have posters of mathematicians. In the classroom, we have all this geometry, trigonometry, even at the elementary level. It's all very math positive focus. In history, we study mathematicians and their contribution to history. In art, we talk about mathematicians and their contribution to painting and different angles. In sports, when we talk about basketball, it's about the angles of the passing, like in geometry. So everything we talk about is math-based. It's how wonderful math is. It's how the world based is on math, finance, all these things. Now, that in itself is good, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But if they come to us and they go, hey, Mark, Alvin, we paid, 15, 20, 30,000 a year for your private school. We thought it was kind of a more well-rounded school. It looks like you're trying to teach them to be mathmaticians. We are not doing that. No.
We aren't.
We're not teaching them to be mathematicians. No, it's just a curriculum. No, we have math class. But we have all the other class. Yeah, but the books and stuff. No. That's just, it's just making children feel welcome and inclusive.
Right.
All right. Okay. Then next year, we had a speaker in class. We had a speaker at assembly. Who was that? He was a master mathematician, a professor, someone who wrote these books, someone who has won the Nobel Prize. Now, if a child goes to our school, Mark, for 12 years, do you think that child's going to come out and be a pretty damn good mathematician?
I would say so, Alvin.
Okay.
I would say
now,
so. Yeah.
Parents, take my story, everything I said, replace the word mathematician with social justice warrior.
Yep.
That's social emotional learning.
That's excellent. That's a really good way to put it. And I'll take this back home for just a second. Is that the DEI director at Norman Public Schools? I'm in Norman, Oklahoma,
I see.
which is OU country. This is the University of Oklahoma.
Mhm,
Said that we that the teachers must embed this
mhm.
the pursuit of equity in everything they do, not in addition to. So it's braided within, right? And so that's exactly what you just described in a very eloquent way, and
Yeah.
I think people are going to understand. So obviously, you have a wealth of knowledge. It seems like you maybe have gone through something like this before, like you've seen this in other places. So, Alvin, tell us how did you grow to know all of this stuff?
Oh,
What
it
is your
just came to me.
story?
This
Did
came to
it
me like
just come to
Moses.
you?
This
Did it?
came to me like Moses. You know,
So, no,
um,
tell us your story because it seems that
yeah.
um, you maybe have some lived experience
Yeah,
that
so
could
lived experience, like they love to say, right?
that
My
could
truth, yeah,
inform this.
my
Tell us
truth.
your
Yeah.
story.
No, no, I have California truth. That's really what it is.
Oh, there it is.
I say that I have a crystal ball, right? And my crystal ball is what California is. And so I was, born and raised in California, and in 2020, we moved to Indiana, and left family, businesses, everything that we knew, because we didn't want to raise a family there. Didn't want to raise my kids there, and kids and future kids there, and because it's not just that California schools are taken over. We've lost that fight a long time ago. We
Yeah.
just didn't know it. But the entire culture has already changed. Now, people know about California. They laugh at it. They see all the ridiculous crime and the drugs and the homelessness. And that is simply a product of them saturating the schools with all this really radical ideas. And when kids grow to be voting age, they only vote one way.
Yeah.
And then that's how California slowly, and California is huge, right? It's a beautiful state, arguably the most beautiful state in the country. And to have it turn to the way it is by, it's because of everything that we're seeing on a national level. But we were first. We did it first, and we didn't know because we didn't have a model. We couldn't look and say, oh, yeah, they're doing this in Virginia. Oh, yeah, they're doing this in
Hmm.
Texas. We were the first. So by the time we knew what was happening, and with all due respect to people in California, my family's still in California. I have a lot of loved ones in California. We felt it was too late to make a major difference for young children. If I was 15 years old or 20 years old, that'd be different. I don't have kids yet, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
But it was just I didn't want to put my kids at the line of fire. So we moved to Indiana, and unfortunately, we found that a lot of the things that ruined California was already planted, even in a red state like Indiana. So I like to tell parents, hey, listen, blue state, red state, it makes no difference because this is an all-out attack on education. They're just taking the
Hmm.
California model and actually doing it better. In
So
California, we didn't even have the model that we have today that's going through coursing through the schools.
really,
Mhm,
let's talk about that.
mhm,
If California is the fruition,
mhm,
what are you seeing in Indiana
mhm.
that are the genesis of this stuff? What is it that parents need to be looking out for
Sure.
now? And well, let's just start there.
Yeah.
What's the genesis of this?
The genesis of this is mostly they start getting into committees and elected official roles that nobody pays attention to. There's, an education fund committee that funds grants and things. Who cares? Nobody knows about that. And most people can't name a grant or a foundation in their own schools. So they
Hmm.
get money, and they start doling out this money. But once you get these really radical activists in these roles, they start putting money into these small activism groups. Okay. They start funding things like GSA groups and Gleason and all those, LGBT radical transgender groups. And they start getting into the schools, what I like to call splinter cells, things that nobody will pay attention to. Simultaneously, they'll also infiltrate things like school boards, superintendents, things of that nature, and they'll start pressuring principals and teachers who have, they don't have any bad intent. They'll start pressuring them, making them feel guilty, especially if they're white, about we need more of this, we need more of that. So those are the things that I saw in Indiana that was already present when I got here. You couldn't see that. You couldn't really research that because they were just underground. But when I saw
Hmm.
it, I recognized it right away. We saw that, and they start brainwashing these kids to be activists. But it's kind of slow, right? It's kind of slow until it's not.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's
It's
what
like
happened.
bankruptcy, right? It's like bankruptcy.
Yeah.
It happens really slow and then all at once.
And then it's not, right? And then all
Yeah.
of a
Yeah.
sudden you see it. And then parents, it's like whiplash. They go, what happened? What? It's all of a sudden. Well, it's not all of a sudden. They've been working on this for the last 6, 7 years. It's just you're not paying attention. And I'll prove it. Ask any parent to name one of your school board members up until maybe this past year. They couldn't do
Right.
it. In fact, I'll even go a step further. Do you have 5 or 7 school board members? Most parents couldn't tell you that. Never mind the name. They don't even know.
Right.
How
Yeah.
many.
Yeah. How many? Yeah. It's
Or
exactly
you
right.
ask them, what does a school board do? What does a school board do?
Yeah.
Couldn't tell you.
Nobody
So
can tell you.
because
Yeah.
they couldn't tell you, parents have largely not paid attention. And again, hey, this is no knock on anybody individually. All of us grew up with parents dropping us off into school. And as long as they drop us off and they see us walk in that building, as long as we're doing our homework and getting decent grades, not hanging out with a bad crowd, not doing drugs, we're pretty good. That's pretty much the extent of parents paying attention, right? Get your 12 years in, try to go to college, the typical thing. It is that autopilot that they took advantage of. Again.
Well, and I like to say this. I like to say this, that they weaponized our good faith, right?
I love that. You know what my version of that is, Mark? My version of that is they took advantage of your kindness by telling you how unkind you are.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Well, and I think that's.
But I love that. I love what you said.
But I think that's the weaponization of empathy. They do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
They weaponize empathy and they weaponize good faith.
That's right. And they weaponize good faith.
They weaponize your good faith by weaponizing your empathy. It's cyclical.
Yes, it's a cyclical.
And they attack you because what they know that you don't is that we no longer have the same foundational premises. We no longer have the same foundational values, right?
Right.
And that's what you had said at the beginning of this when we're talking about social emotional learning.
The change, yeah.
Right.
The hijacking of terms. They know that you don't know.
Right.
That they've changed the.
And it's so sad because it has broken down society by design, right?
Yes.
And they're
like California, because you saturate the schools, get them out into the voting world. They start voting for this same thing, what they learned in school, and then now citizens feel it. Businesses.
Well, and I want to take everything that you've said to one point that I make a lot, which is everybody knows Ibram Kendi. Everybody knows what he put out. Well, not everybody, but most people listening to me probably do.
Most people listen to you, which is actually sad that they know him.
Yes, but he defines anti-racism, right, explicitly in terms of public policy.
That's right.
Right. And he's saying that in order to be an anti-racist, you must support these policies. That's not just in the political sphere, that's in the institutional sphere.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you're attacking this, they tell you, well, hey, be an anti-racist. And who doesn't want to be anti-racism?
Who doesn't?
Right. No, everybody does, right? But everybody wants to be that. But they weaponize your good faith in saying they know you don't want to be a racist. Right. They know you don't. They know you want to be empathetic, right? Yeah. But unreciprocated empathy is manipulation, and that's what they demand of you. That's what you were explaining about social emotional learning, that's how social emotional learning fits into the CRT picture. Right? It is the weaponization of empathy, and it's done through authority, isn't it? It's done through many, just like you were saying with the positions in a school or in a community.
Yeah.
But I want to get into this because there's a certain position of authority that has been weaponized that you're really focusing on now.
Yes.
And that is school counselors.
Yes, school counselors.
Talk to us about school counselors, because here's what I'm going to approach this. Alvin, isn't a school counselor just somebody who's there? He's there. They're there to tell you, what you need to do to get in college, right?
Yes,
they're there if you may have a problem in the classroom, right?
Right.
But that's what I've always known school counselors to be, right?
Right.
What's the problem with them? I don't understand.
Right. What's the problem? And once upon a time, there wasn't. They were the nice guidance counselors, right? We know the problem is guidance counselors. Yeah. Remember that? For academics, or maybe if you have a bad day or a bad week, they talk to you a little bit. But if it got anything more serious, they pull your parents in so that you can find your own family therapist, and then off you go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let me just start with some context. There is an organization called ASCA. It stands for the American School Counselors Association, ASCA, ASCA. They have a chapter in all 50 states. They've been around for a very, very long time. Most school counselors in K through 12 take their mission and directives from ASCA, meaning every year they have objectives, and the school counselors take those objectives from this organization. We've long known that ASCA is not one of the body in K through 12 that drives the critical race theory ideology, and especially the transgender ideology, more than anyone else. Teachers have gotten a lot of heat, rightly so. School board members, rightly so. But remember, school board members can generally only sign contracts and approve or not approve certain policies. They don't drive necessarily the culture. That's a big difference. I want everyone to remember that. Woke teachers, if you have enough of them, can change the culture, but generally they change the culture of a classroom. Okay, still got to get rid of them, but ASCA, however, drives the culture of the entire school. Right, counselors.
Yep.
More importantly, school counselors have access to children who actually are going through a tough time, vulnerable children that may actually have some level of, mental issues, be depression, be it bipolarism, be it autism, or any of those challenges where normally you would try to get them to a better place. Or maybe they don't have any mental issues, but they're going through a family trauma, something happened, death, and any of those, dozens of things that children may go through. And if you guide them right, once that time passes, they're okay. These school counselors are taking advantage of these children and moving them towards a transition, the pronouns, and all those different things. Now, ASCA, every counselor will tell you, no, we're just trying to support all students. This is horrible. How can you think this of us?
Mm-hmm.
So we thought, okay, all right. We're going to go to one of your conferences and we're going to grab information from your own conference, and we're going to see if what you're saying is true. Is it just you supporting students? Is it just you working tightly with the parents? Is it just you going, hey, we're just here to facilitate? Let's find out. So we went to their conference in July. It's a conference called No Limits, which it's really obtuse that you, as school counselors, that you're around children calling your conference No Limits.
Yeah, that seems a bit suggestive.
Yeah. So the fact that they let that PR person let that through. All right, fine. So we created a campaign. So we pulled tons of videos, handouts that they gave us, right? That they sent us, PowerPoint presentations. So we created a campaign called Behind Closed Doors. Now, a lot of parents will recognize this door. That's what a lot of the door for school counselors look like, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this campaign, if you just, go through it, it's basically just presenting their own material. They say, hey, school counselors do not indoctrinate or willfully transition students. We want nothing more in this world than to help and support students. That's what they keep saying. This is a statement from the executive director, Joe Scott. So we go, okay, well, let's see if that's really true. And then the rest of the document here, the rest of this tool is just their own stuff. Here is their schedule. This is their own agenda.
Just hold for a second. I want to hit this point that the left is going to set their hair on fire because you have this, right? And you're obviously presenting this in a critical way, if we want to use it, right? You're being critical of what they're doing. I'm being critical,
yes.
But like, I don't know, someone we know on Twitter lives at TikTok, right?
Yeah.
You're just showing a mirror.
Yeah.
Right? And all you're doing here in this document is great because it is a libs of TikTok type document, which I think is the best way of showing anybody what it is. I mean, just like with Ibram Kendi. Yeah. All you had to do was show, hey, there's no remedy to racist discrimination without anti-racist. If you show that to people, their head goes, wait a minute.
What
he
he
couldn't
didn't say that.
possibly
He
be
couldn't have
saying
possibly
that.
said that.
He couldn't have possibly said that.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
They were exactly saying this. So let's go through a little bit of this. So explain to us what we're seeing here.
So the one on the left side, this is their no limits ASCA 2022 annual conference. This is right. This is their thing, and this is their schedule. Right. This is their part. This is only a part. Right. This is their agenda. Right. Anti-racism starts with us. Become an LGBTQ inclusive school. Legal and ethical considerations. Student surveys. Equity in action. Tech grad students trauma-informed practices, support transgender, gender-expansive students, DEI town hall, anti-racism perspectives, middle school matters, restorative justice, LGBTQ and school council. I mean, and then their position statement, 2021 position statement. It is an expectation, not an exception, for school counselors to integrate multiculturalism and social justice perspectives into their work as advocates and leaders. Again, this is their position statement.
But Alvin, I don't see SEL on here. So
right.
I mean, I don't see the letters. Right. I don't see any of the language in terms of psychology. So is SEL involved in this, or I mean,
their whole model is SEL, right? That's their driving belief. That's their religion. This is just the pieces of that religion. So if you scroll down a little bit, we have some videos of them talking about how they call themselves master manipulators. They talk about critical race theory, the lens. If anybody clicks on it, it goes to the video. This is Catherine Stone, the third and fourth video. She is, and I'm going to say this slowly because I don't want people to go, he didn't say that. Catherine Stone is the head of the ethics chair.
Oh, well, at least she's got ethics, right?
Sure. And she's been the head of the ethics chairs for about 20 years or just about. Before that, she was the president of ASCA. So she's been a lifelong, leader in ASCA. The third video is her telling a story about how a school counselor, again, I must say this slowly because no one, believe me, you got to click on the video, right? When people get my document here. She is telling a story of a counselor that drove a girl to get contraceptives because her mother will not let her get the contraceptives. And she tells a story and she says, now, when the counselor came to me and said she did this, I had three choices. One, I will tell her to say,
all right, I lost you. My fault. Go ahead.
One is to say, this is not right. We shouldn't do this. Two, call the mother and tell her, hey, I did this, own up to it. Or three, she calls it hold your breath and pray. Basically, hold your breath and pray the mother never found out. And she goes, what choice do you think, audience, we should take? And everybody said three. And she said, yay, now you're ready for the ethics chair. I wish I was making this up. You can click the video and listen to it.
Well, it won't. There.
You click the contraceptives. Just click on the.
Yeah, hold on a second. Hold on. I have to share it. But
anyway,
we got to listen to this. Hold on. Let me figure it out because.
I couldn't even do the story justice the way she told it.
Well, I don't think you should have to. Let me share it because that's something nobody believes us.
Nobody believes.
That's the thing about this. Nobody believes that this stuff is actually happening, that they're actually coming out and saying this themselves.
Yeah.
And when I will find this as well, when they are confronted with it, it even takes time then for them to understand, wait a minute, they did just say that, right? They did just say what it is I thought they just said. So yeah, let's go ahead and listen. Let's make sure you can hear it. Can you hear it?
It's no, I just do an intro about who she is. Okay, so I put just so that everybody knows who we're listening to.
Okay.
Our kids are being erased by laws such as Parents' Bill of Rights.
Oh, you clicked on the wrong one.
Actually
I clicked on the wrong one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Now, this one's a good one too. She's saying that kids are being erased because of parental rights. That's how much they hate parental rights. But you can listen to this one.
Let's listen to this one. We'll go back to the one you were talking about, because I think this is really important. This is what we're hearing in Oklahoma right now is it's a fight against parental rights, but they're trying to shade it, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to shade it as
no, we're not doing that.
Fighting for teachers. Right. So it's parents against teachers. Right. And so in order to have teachers' rights, you can't have parental rights. Right. And so this seems to be much more explicit. So let's just listen to this one.
Woke Act. You refuse to remain comfortable in your role as long as there's one student left out of the success
go back.
equation.
Okay.
Go back. Yeah, it starts in the beginning. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
For those, okay. This is the ASCA annual conference. Is the ethics chairman.
Our kids are being erased by laws such as Parents' Bill of Rights and the Stop Woke Act. There's actually a Stop Woke Act. You refuse to remain comfortable in your role as long as there's one student left out of the success equation. Yes, learn the rules so that you know how to break them.
Children are being erased because of the Parental Rights Act.
So learn the rules so you know how to break them. That was the wording she just used, right?
It's not taken out of context. Now, again, this is a whole opening sequence. I can show you the 3 minutes before and 3 minutes after. She just moves on to something else. So I didn't cut it. It's not like afterwards she said something like anything, like she didn't take that back. She didn't soften it. She just went on.
Let's go to the one we were talking about before was contraceptives.
The contraceptives.
Right. Yeah. So let's go to that one. I got to share it.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, head of the ethics chair. I really want to drive this point home, okay? Head of the ethics chair for about 20 years now. School counselors.
School counselors. Well, and I'm going to bring this back home because this is happening even in charter schools right now in Oklahoma. So here we go. Here's this one. This is the hiding the birth control from mother.
Yep.
Following excerpt. Same conference. Ethics chairman, past president of ASCA.
I get that a lot. And then she explained that she had just taken a child to get contraceptives at a clinic because her mother wouldn't let her have them. She said, "What do I do?" "Okay, school counselor, solve this for me. Do you tell her go back and convince the student to tell her parent? Or do you tell her 2, call the girl's mother yourself and confess? Or do you tell her 3, hold your breath and pray?" Turn to your neighbor and tell your neighbor what you're going to tell her. 3, I hear. See, you are all ready to be part of the ethics committee, so sign up.
Wow. So explain that for us again. What did she just say, Alvin? What did she just say?
She said that a counselor took a girl to get contraceptives because the girl's mother would not let her. And she goes, now we have 3 choices. Do you tell the girl to go back and convince her mother? Do you call the mother and own up to what you did? Or 3, you tell her meaning the counselor, saying you just hold your breath and pray.
Wow.
Meaning just hope that the mother doesn't find out. And now I want to point out 2 things. Okay. I want to point out 2 very critical things. You can turn up the volume and hear it. Anybody wants to do it. The counselors, it's like her, will try to convince you these are anything that we say that we find out will be rogue counselors, isolated incidents. You'll notice that when she said that, nobody in the audience gasped. Nobody said, oh, I can't believe she did that. They were dead silent, like it always happens. And when she says, turn to your neighbor, what would you do? Everybody said, number 3.
Well, let's just listen to it. Just to
hold your breath and pray. Turn to your neighbor and tell your neighbor what you're going to tell her. 3, I hear.
That's it. So, and it sounds like a room full of counselors.
No, this is their conference. It's only counselors.
It's only counselors.
It's only counselors. This is their yearly, here's our mission, here's the thing. And that's that's
so it's just like a conference like any other teachers conference, right? And okay, so there is a concerted effort
Yeah.
from the top down to implant all of these things as being the operating function. It seems a little bit like a moral system, right?
Yes.
Almost like a religion.
It
Like
is.
this
It's an
might be a
absolute religion.
hacking of the separation of church and state a little bit.
Oh, it's an
Um,
absolute hacking of the church and state because the new religion is this extreme ideology. Some people call it woke. You can call it whatever, but it's a absolute religion with hard and fast rules that you cannot break or you're going to be ostracized. And now, if you go back to
yeah, we're
the
gonna go back.
behind closed doors, you'll see the other part of this religion, which is, of course, the transgender.
Yes.
What do you do if a student who is not transgender complains about being uncomfortable? Do you talk to the student? No, you turn them in for harassment and bullying. Think about it. This is they're saying if students are uncomfortable, you're skipping the brainwash. You're just saying, oh, we're going to continue to educate them, but we're just going to turn them in as for harassment and bullying because it's just a coercion of children's minds to accept this cult. And again, I know your readers can't read the learning objectives because on the screen it's probably too small, but it's all the learning objectives for school counselors, right? The learning objectives is all this very, very heavy or radical ideology. And I'll read it because I know you can't probably read it, but it's define transgender, gender expansive, and other important terms related to sexuality, gender identity, differentiate between sex and gender, identify legal resources that protect students who are transgender, identify areas in your school and district that can be better support students who are transgender and gender expansive. I mean, it just goes. And then if you scroll down a little bit, there's definitions. Again, this is all the training. And this is, now keep in mind, this is just a fraction because we don't want to release like just 50 slide thing. This is just our first campaign to start introducing parents to the counselor's not what you think it is. We've got a whole month and a half of this stuff that we're going to put out. This is just a tip of the iceberg. But this is the kind of stuff that they did the conference in. The conference was like 3 days. It was all this stuff. And they're turning
and if anybody's ever been to an education type conference, you have session after session, you have multiple sessions going on at the same time.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, so you probably didn't even get to see everything that was happening, right?
I didn't,
unless you would have had 30 or 40 people there all at once going through everything that was going on.
Yeah,
right?
we had our small team going through, and then we, the other, people did different things, but we couldn't cover everything. We couldn't.
Right. Well, and I want to underscore the manipulation here because I think that's what parents need to understand. First of all, and what I always try to hit back on is that you're being manipulated, not just you, but your children, right? And you're being manipulated because they claim to be against the binary, but they're teaching binary thinking. Right. It's a preemptive narrative.
Yeah.
Right. Well, they jump it out and say, well, we want to be tolerant of everyone and everything, but except for the people that don't believe this stuff, right? Then that's the massive binary wrapped within all of the tolerance.
We support everyone except the people who don't agree with us.
Right. Yeah. We support everyone except for the parents that don't want their kids, pushed along, or may I use the word groomed to think along these lines.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And that's why James Lindsay being kicked off Twitter, and not everybody's going to know, but the apex of that was the word that was too
on the nose,
specific on the nose, for what it is they do, and so they could not tolerate.
They could not let him. Yeah, they had to, because he was educating too many people at too great of a speed.
Well, and I think that's what you're doing here too. You're expanding that out a little bit. You're illustrating what the grooming is, because here's the other part of it is that I always say that SEL plus DEI plus CRT plus gender ideology is woke conversion therapy.
Yes,
it is conversion therapy. And it's so funny because here in Norman, Oklahoma, the reddest state in America, the city council a year and a half or so ago banned conversion therapy in the city.
Okay.
And they and they were going towards, you can't tell kids they're not gay. You can't tell their kids, whatever. And something that, was more prevalent, obviously 20, 30 years ago in the religious community.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But they got suspiciously silent when I just came up to them and I said, well, isn't this exactly what's happening in the schools here?
Yeah.
Didn't you just ban something that's happening in the school? Because if
Yeah.
you can be converted one way, you can be converted the other way.
The other way.
You've accepted the premise,
That's right.
right?
Right.
You've accepted the
No,
premise. And so,
that's a great point. It's just the it's good for them to transition and to transform, but not for you.
right. And
Yeah, the
that's what
conversion.
this comes down to, is that social emotional learning.
Mhm.
First of all, you've got a bunch of teachers and or counselors, because you can
Mhm.
be a school counselor without
Yeah.
being a
Yeah.
psychologist,
That's
right?
right. That's
Or
right.
even
Oh,
really
yeah.
having any of that training.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
you can
Most of
have
them. Yeah.
most of them don't necessarily have
Yeah. Right.
definitely an MD level or a even a counselor's degree,
Yeah.
in many aspects, right? They're teachers who've become counselors, and they've taken, a 2-year certificate program, or they've gotten accredited through ASCA, or different ways of doing that. There are multiple different ways, depending on the state, that you can become a school
Right.
counselor, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so you've got a bunch of people using psychological methods that are
Yeah.
practicing psychology without a license.
Yes, absolutely right. And now, since you kind of brought up the point about, help, right, social emotional learning and psychologists and things, one of the so at the end, you know, we did a door of
Uh-huh.
what it would have probably looked like in 1998, and we pulled their 1998 ethics statement, their position statement, and it reads,
Oh,
refrains from
that's great.
consciously encouraging the counselor's acceptance of value, or counselees, refrains from consciously encouraging a counselee's acceptance of values, lifestyle, plans, decisions, and beliefs that represent the counselor's personal orientation. Sounds wonderful.
That's
You would think.
that's the school
Compare
counselors we
that.
knew.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, if you scroll back up to page 2 and read their
Uh-huh.
current, one more time, right? Page 2, right? Page 3 then. Sorry, page 3. Right there.
Yeah.
It is an expectation, not the exception, for school counselors to integrate multiculturalism and social justice perspectives into their work as advocates and leaders.
My goodness. It seems things have changed, right?
Oh, yeah, just
Yeah,
a little
but
bit.
let's go back into what you were talking about with social emotional
Okay.
learning.
Yeah.
So,
So there is a misconception by very good-hearted people, okay, that there are good things about social emotional learning. Okay, that there are good things
mhm,
about social emotional learning. Isn't social emotional learning good? What about this? My child needed this, and social emotional learning helped her. My friend's daughter needed help. My friend's son needed help. It looks like it helped them. Anything that they claim that social emotional learning did well,
mhm,
it already existed. Social emotional learning came in and hijacked programs that were already good. For anybody that wants to know more information about it, if they go to courageisahabit.org, we have a document out there called Decoding What About the Kids. Okay,
mhm,
you just go to courageisahabit.org, you just click download it. It's called What About the Kids? And it is our tool that explains what social emotional learning hijacked. So very quickly, there were 2 programs that have existed forever in schools. It was called Response to Intervention, which is RTI, and Positive Behavior Intervention Supports, PBIS. Those 2 programs worked in tandem. The first one, RTI, dealt with kids who needed academic help, kids
right.
who fell behind.
That's
Now,
right.
they would always work on it on an individual basis, try to pull the kid up to where the standards are as best as possible. PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention Supports, dealt with the behavioral issues, okay? And they worked in tandem to try to use positive reinforcement to pull the child up.
Mhm,
Now, here's the major difference. Those 2 programs dealt with children on an individual basis. They didn't say the school culture needed changing. They didn't say that there's systematic racism or oppression, and that's why students can't learn, and that's why they feel bad, and that's why they don't feel seen or belong. They knew that those were individual problems for the individual children, and they're trying to get
mhm,
them to be able to rise up to the standard of the school. Social emotional learning came in, hijacked those 2 programs, and said, this is what we're doing, and then added all the social justice stuff, the critical race theory. And so that's what they did. So now it's like separating chocolate milk separating chocolate when it's already mixed into the milk. They're saying, oh, if you take out social emotional learning, oh, we're not going to be able to help kids. This is all good. There was nothing redeemable or good about social emotional learning. Anything that is good attributed to social emotional learning already existed.
Right.
That's
and
a very important.
they wrapped it around this new
Yes.
term so they could include the other things.
That's right.
Right.
And that's what the tool, because that is the single biggest misconception about social emotional learning. And if you go to courageisahabit.org, download What About the Kids, then then at the end of this one here, we have a form written by our attorneys, and it's for parents. You can download the PDF, fill it out online, or print it out and fill it out. But it's interactive. You can fill it out. Take it to your school principal and counselors. Send them multiple copies and say, if my child has any indication that they want to be called by a different name or pronoun, you have 3 business days to alert me. And if you don't, now you have an official file that you sent that can be FOIA'd for future potential legal avenues.
That's excellent. That's absolutely excellent.
At Courage is a Habit, we don't like to just point out a problem and drop this kind of big bag of crap on your doorstep. We always try to give you tools to do something about it.
That's
because
right.
We don't want parents to feel helpless, because I know a lot of these things can be very doom and gloom. But on a positive note, I want every parent to understand there is so much you can do.
Well, and I want to hit this point, because I firmly believe that, first of all, regardless of what you may think of school choice, and I think there are merits, that it is my belief that you can't, retreat is not combat. Okay. Now, right. I know that you can, lob some volleys as you run away, right? Yeah. And you can do that kind of thing, but
sure.
What Alvin is giving you here, what Courage is a Habit is giving you here, is the actual mechanisms to help take it back while you're there. Right. Because here's the other part. And when you talk about places like Oklahoma and Indiana, that may be even different than California, is that parents and families have an actual emotional connection to their schools.
Right.
Right. Right. Your communities, their football teams, their choral programs,
oftentimes it's the same school the parents went to.
Exactly.
So hugely emotional. Yeah.
Exactly. And so why not fight for that?
Sure.
And I think what this does here is it gives, because the biggest thing that we have on our side is still the law.
Yes.
Because the law makes much of this illegal. But there's this huge chasm between the law and the people, and that's called policy. Right. And the people who run the policy are the people that Alvin were talking about at the beginning of this, which are the people that hold those little those little offices, those little positions that no one thinks about, whether it's your school counselor or your principal or your school board member or your person who's writing the grants for the thing, or your curriculum administrator, or here's another one that's really coming into play, your student services director.
Yeah.
Right. They're very quickly taking up the DEI mantle now that that's been started to be called out. So now they're all turning into student services directors.
Sure.
But these are the ones that implement and govern what policy is actually put into place from the law to the people.
That's right. Yeah, that's very well put. That's exactly right.
So what this form right here, this is a great example, because in order to do something about it, the law is reactive. It's not proactive.
It's not proactive. Right.
Yeah.
So you have to activate it. You have to activate that reaction.
Exactly. So what this piece of paper does right here is an excellent tool. It's an excellent tool to, first of all, you are proactive in making a reaction, right?
That's
right. So if they get this piece of paper, even if they don't sign it,
that's right.
They've been served a notice from a parent, right? They've been served a notice that they expect it. Now
and if you email it, official record that it can be FOIA'd.
Exactly. Right. And so they've been informed. Now, that means that, say they didn't sign it, because I think you're going to have people that would say, I would not sign it.
That's right.
At that moment that you've sent it to them, you can say, I informed you, and this is where the Parental Bill of Rights comes into play within different states.
That's right.
I informed you, right? Yeah. And you're still in violation of the law.
Yeah.
In many states, maybe not in California, maybe not in other ones. Yeah. So this is an exceedingly practical and effective tool.
You're still minors. Think
Yes,
about it. They're still minors. Hey, if
exactly.
you have a high schooler, mostly they're still minors because the majority of children are still minors in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them don't hit, they may hit 18 right before they graduate or maybe in their last year. So the great majority are still minors. So you got to remember that, right?
That's
and they're
right.
trying to talk about this sexuality, hormone blockers, all these things, keeping it from you. So the thing about this is that the best case scenario is that they know you're paying attention and they're not going to mess with you because they know you're on it. You're on it. You're going to, and then they're going to say like, okay, we're not going to, so you go, I don't want, my students should not under any circumstances talk to a school counselor without my knowledge or presence.
Right.
And you got to let me know in 3 business days. Right now. And then also the way my lawyer wrote it was very clear. In good faith, you have to let me know with 2 forms. So they can't send an email, go to spam and go, oh, we told you. So we said 2 forms of communication. So we spell that out. That's a very key thing my lawyer put in. But the other thing is, if you get enough parents to do this, let's say you get, 100 parents, 200 parents to do this in a school, which is very small, and they tell all those parents to go pound sand. Let's say they go pound sand. We're not going to listen to you. Now you have a movement and a momentum to go to your legislators during next session to go, why isn't this a policy? Why can a government institute just tell me to go pound sand? Now you have a different movement. So this act, you said it best, it activates the reaction because laws are reactive, not proactive. I love that. I'm going to remember that. And I'm gonna steal that. That's great.
You use it. Yeah, no. Well, and don't worry, I'm gonna be stealing a bunch of your stuff too. So that's the thing about this. And that's what Alvin's doing, what I've tried to do, what all the way James Lindsay, Kelly Skye, all these great people working on this stuff, is that this is not about us. This is about the kids, and this is about, and I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to take this and I'm going to hand this to parents. This is going to go out. I've now become a bit of a Courage as a Habit satellite group because what we don't want is a bunch of complaining without any tools to prevent it and or to stop what's happening. And I think that there is a concerted political effort from both right and left in various forms to use the Rahm Emanuel, don't let any crisis go to waste, to push things that aren't necessarily going to fix the problem. And when I talk about fixing the problem, I'm talking about individual families. I'm talking about individual parents, individual children, not the system.
Not the system.
Not moving from one system to the other, because anything that you do within a group of people is a system, people. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Yeah, that's right.
You say what you want, but what you're able to do is, if you don't have the capacity to take your kid to another school for, a school choice school, or you don't have enough money to make up the difference for the school that you want to go to, right? If you do, great, use that. Okay. Make sure that the school you move them to doesn't have the same problem, because here's the other thing. I see this as designed right now. This is designed for a public school. This is not designed for a private school, because this paper would not fly in a private school. They will just look at you and go, okay, well, take your contract and go somewhere else. Go vote with your feet.
That's right. That's right. So this is different. I want to be clear that we focus very, the blueprint for public or private school, how they destroy a private school is kind of largely the same, SEL and CRT and the transgender cult. But the way you fight it would be different for obvious reasons. So all the stuff
it would be different. And I just want to underscore this, and this is not to take back, because I think there are many good people on the school choice side of things. And as people on my channel have heard me say, make school choice woke proof. But what you have in a public school that you do not have in a private school is you have a school board to yell at. They are public employees
that you can vote, get out.
Right, that you can get, but even the teachers and the administrators, they do not have free speech protections.
They don't have free speech protection. No, they do not.
Because they are public employees. That's right. Right. And so I love this letter because it takes advantage of all of those things, because you can avoid it. The thing that makes it actionable, no matter what you do with it, as long as you send it, is the fact that you do it. As long as you do it, is the fact that you can go back and grab it later through a Freedom of Information Act for a public institution, right?
That's right.
And that is what makes this ingenious, and I really appreciate it, and I think parents around here are definitely going to really appreciate it
Yeah.
because it it
Good.
it fixes so many just on the ground things, not big, 50,000-foot things, but
That's
what
right.
the
It's the
parents are actually
50,000
doing.
foot that makes parents feel helpless and tired.
Right.
And we had if you go to encourageishabit.org, we also had an opt-out campaign that we ran over the summer. Same idea. We have a form. We taught parents about the parental pupil protection rights, that you can't just say, oh, you can't opt your kids out of surveys. We won't allow it. It's a federal law. We taught parents that. Again, similar form. So most of the things we put out has a call to action or a suggested call to action at the end, because we don't want to just lay it on a parent's feet and go and kind of give them generic things like go fight for your children.
Right.
It
Yeah.
doesn't help, right?
Get really, really upset about everything and go
But
be
then,
really upset.
yeah.
And
But
then
then what?
here is
What do you
right.
do with that upset? What do you do with that energy?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what the left has done better than the right on
Yes.
the whole, is
Oh,
that they
much
have
better.
the left is a bureaucratic animal,
Mhm.
right? They live inside that space between the law and the people. And they know
Yes.
all the avenues, right?
Yep.
A great
Yep.
book is called Counter Wokecraft by Charles Pincourt. You can find that on New Discourses,
Okay.
James Lindsay's website.
Oh,
But he
okay.
talks about the intricacies of the things that Alvin mentioned at the beginning.
Yeah.
That again, this form, and I just love this form, and I can't believe I looked through this and I didn't compute it earlier, but this form drives a stake through the nail
That's
of
right.
that, or through the heart of that
Yeah.
entire apparatus
Right.
by shedding light on it.
That's right.
Have you ever been under a porch and you shine a flashlight and all the
The
critters
bugs. Yeah.
right.
That's exactly what this.
It's
Yeah.
exactly what this
That's
does.
right.
And
Right.
and especially in a state like Oklahoma, in the red states that have these parental bill of rights,
Yeah.
that have these expectations for the
Yeah.
public schools,
Yeah.
more so than in blue states or even purple states,
Yeah.
already there,
Yeah.
right? And
That's right.
that's really, really good, Alvin. It's really good. So uh, let's, as we wind down here,
Yes, sir.
um, I want, if you had a message for parents,
Okay.
if you had a message for parents about what it is that they can do, first of all, to keep their spirits up in the fight,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And to keep the heat on, to make change, because we all know that you know this is not going to be a fast food fix.
No, it wasn't a
It took
fast food problem.
exactly. It took 60, 70 years, really.
Mhm. Yeah.
If you want to go back to the apex and all of that, to inject this into schools.
Yeah.
What encourage, because your name is Courage is a Habit,
Right.
right?
Right.
And I love that name because it 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 shows that, first of all, you're never going to win the war, for any war, by winning just one battle.
No.
And you're going to get knocked back and forth, and you don't
Mhm.
need courage
Mhm.
in times where you're not afraid,
No.
right?
Nope.
And
You
so
just, yep, go along.
what advice would you have for parents, to stay in the fight and to keep
Mhm.
up their courage as this keeps going forward?
Sure. I think I would say two things. One is mental and one is practical, because I think you need both. Y- Without knowing anyone that's listening to, watching you and listening to you, if your child was in a burning building and they were screaming for you, no matter what anyone said to you or about the situation, you would ignore them and run into that building. And even if you knew you were going to die in that building, as long as you can get your child out to safety, every parent would do it in a heartbeat without thinking about it.
Yeah.
That is, I think, a true statement that every parent would agree with me on, right?
Yes.
But if someone pointed a finger at you and called you a bigot, you stand down. Why?
Mhm.
Why is that? You have bravery running into a building, but you get scared because someone calls you a label. Why? Because over time, they've conditioned you, good, kind-hearted person, to make fear a habit. As you, Mark, so well put it, they've weaponized trust and weaponized your kindness. So now your immediate gut reaction is to let's not rock the boat. What if they go after my child? What if they do this? What if they do that? Because now fear is a habit.
Yep.
But the good news is that it doesn't take very long if every time you want to say something or write something or whatever the case may be, and your heart's coming out of your chest and your head's going, just don't say anything. Don't say anything. If you can just ignore that voice for a second and do it, and then take the arrows, oh, you're bigot, you're racist, you're white supremacist. And then you're like, all right, that was terrible. And then the second time you do it again and again and again, two things happen. They aren't coming after you as hard the 8th or 9th time because they know it doesn't work. But more importantly, you don't feel it the 8th or 9th or 12th time, because now you're slowly making courage a habit. But you got to get there. You can't get there by just saying, maybe if I just be quiet, can I work around that fear? You have to go through that 3 or 4 times where it just sucks because nobody likes to be called names, right? But I promise you that if you do it by the 10th or 12th time, you won't feel it anymore. You just won't, because now you make courage a habit. Okay. That's a very important mental thing. You got to get past, you have to be able to get past that in order to stand up for your children. And I will say one more mental thing and I'll get to the practical thing. The words that they call you actually have no meaning. It only has meaning in your mind. And I'll prove it to you. Let's say that you and your spouse are going to dinner. You're walking down the street, crazy homeless person, smelly, just, crazy hair, jumps out and go, you're a racist, white bigot, white supremacist, bigot, homophobe, transphobe. What would you do? You would go, oh shit. And then you would walk across the street and continue on to dinner with your spouse, right? It might startle you for a few minutes, but by and large, you just go on. And most of the evening, you might not even talk about that situation because it happened and you're like, oh, that's the city. And that's it. You wouldn't go home and think about it. You wouldn't post about it. You wouldn't write about it. You wouldn't talk about it. It would just be like, ooh. But if the next day, a school board member or a teacher or someone in your community, some activist, some white guilt-ridden suburban mom goes, you're a racist, white supremacist, transphobe, homophobe. You go, oh my gosh, I better not say anything. Why? She used the same words as a homeless man. Why was it when the homeless man did it, you're just like, but why when if somebody that lives around the corner from you did it, why all of a sudden you're like, oh, I can't stand up for my child. She used the same words. Why is your reaction different in one situation to another? It tells you the words have no power. You gave it power.
Yeah.
You gave it power. If the words had power, you would feel just as bad when the homeless guy did it.
Yeah. That's right. That's excellent advice. That's excellent advice.
So you have, first of all, the first and foremost, you have to get over the fact that these people are coming after your children and that they don't care. They want to get you out of the way. So you got to be there.
So you have to stand in between.
You got to stand between. Now, here's one thing that I hear from parents almost in any state. It's unbelievable. I don't want to do this because they may take it out on my child. So I'm going to stay silent and go along to get along, because if I opt them out of surveys, if I say no, I don't want to participate in the pronoun thing, they're going to be isolated by the teacher. They're going to be picked on by the administration. Okay. So that's, first of all, they would have a big lawsuit on their hands and discrimination lawsuits and all those different things. So let's never mind that. But let's go with that though. Let's say you're right, that if you stand up for this as a parent and you're like, no, you can't do this to my child, they're going to go, all right, great. I'm going to take it out on your child for the next 4 years. If you truly believe that that's the environment and the culture and the society that we live in now, that you as a parent went to teachers and principals and said, please don't do this to my minor child. And they said, I'll take it out on your minor child. If you truly believe that's where we are, shouldn't you fight harder?
Yeah.
Because if you don't, and you think that's where we are now, where do you think they're going to grow up when they become 25 or 30? It means, hey, if you don't believe in this, no job for you. Oh, that's right. You want to come into Kroger's? Let me see your score. Let me see what your surveys and all up. Your anti-racist score is low. No food for you.
No food for you.
If you believe that your child is going to get kicked off the basketball team because you stood up for this, where else are they going to get kicked out of in the future if they don't believe in the right things? So for those parents that really believe, oh, they might take it out on my child. If you truly believe that, you better fight 3 times as hard. If you truly believe that's where we are.
Progressivism progresses. And that's it doesn't have a stopping point. And I think that's what you're articulating there is that you'd rather have the small discomfort now in fighting it when it's small than than saving it for your child to fight years and years from now.
Because they'll have no
Right?
chance.
They'll have no chance, right? Because it will be too ingrained in everything that they do, right? Too embedded, and a part of all of their culture and their work and how they operate in life. And I think that if we can utilize what Alvin is giving us right now, if we can utilize what him and Kelly and James and me and different people are bringing to this conversation, and really put it into action in the way that I think Alvin is doing really well with Courage is a Habit, then we can stop that from happening.
Exactly right.
Before we become California. And I wrote an article just a few months ago about the Californication of America, or the Californication of Oklahoma, right? Because what you see here now is that, big Silicon Valley companies are jumping into the state, and lots of money, and it's all back to data, and it all is infused with education, and they are bringing in Silicon Valley values.
That's right.
Right. And we need to recognize that. It's not good news. And we need to recognize that. And we need to use the tools we still have while we have them. But we have to have the courage to do it.
That's right. And for the practical advice there, that's all the mental stuff. Practically speaking, there's a lot of things you can do. I would recommend this. Even if you're a parent that has never done anything, there's one thing that you can do, and you can find it on courageisahabit.org. Opt your children out of SEL surveys. If you take your kids out of that bloodline, then you help. Number one, you protect your child because they're not logging your children's data, which is, I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican, nobody should be good with your children's data being recorded like this and tracked and that kind of thing. But more importantly, it helps you throw a wrench into the SEL pipeline or bloodline where they keep serving your kid, manipulating the data and saying we need more social emotional learning. So if you can get a large group of parents, even if it's like 15%, parents in your school to opt out, you can download our opt-out guide. We teach you all about it. We give you the forms. We explain how it works. It's called Data Mining Opt-out, or opt-out data mining. Download it. We give you supplementals. We give you forms. That's the one thing I will say every parent should do. And then the second thing is what you showed today about telling counselors, you cannot talk to my child. You have 3 days if they come to you with this. Those are the two basic things that every parent can do literally Monday morning. Beyond that, you can go to school board. I would recommend let's say if there's a pornographic book like a Genderqueer or any of these books that probably people like you and different parental groups have exposed. Grab that book, stand up in front of your school board, read it out to them. Take your 2 minutes, 3 minutes, read it out to them. Have a friend film you. And then don't depend on their recording. Have a friend film you, release it out and go, hey, look, this is a book in the 8th grade. This is a book in the 9th grade. This is a book in the 5th grade. Read an excerpt. The best thing that can happen is that the school board shuts you down. The school board said, nope, this is obscene. You can't read it. And that literally proves your point.
Yeah.
So those are the three things that I would recommend to every parent at the most basic level that you can do.
It's a brand of activism that's in pursuit of a noble goal.
Right. And then tell other parents. Share it with other parents.
Share it with other parents, because nothing, like we said earlier, nothing spreads this wide like the recitation of their own words. Out in public, and the reactions to that are just golden. So Alvin, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Everybody go to courageisahabit.org. Follow Alvin on, I'm just going to put it up here because it was at the bottom. Follow him on all the social medias at Courage is a Habit, courageisahabit.org, on Instagram here.
Instagram and Twitter is at Courage Habit.
And you're going to be seeing a lot more of this in Oklahoma. I promise you that.
Thank you.
So
there's one more I wanted to give you guys and everybody is that I know elections coming up, school board elections. So we literally just late last week, we put out 10 questions you should be asking school board candidates to vet out if they're woke or not. And that's also on the site called Ask School Board Candidates. So it's just 10 questions. We teach you how to ask them. So there's your 10 questions you should ask every candidate as you interview candidates.
Awesome. That's great. We'll get everybody that information. I'll include links to everything in this so that we have a quick way to get to these specific things that you're mentioning
Thank you.
because they're very important.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Mark. You've been so kind. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate your work. You're a class act.
No, you are, man. And we're going to be seeing more of Alvin on this podcast. I promise
Thank
you
you.
that, whether he wants to or not. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. Oh, and like and subscribe to my channel too,
Yes.
Unwokable, and click the like button, the bell, all of those things so you can see when I have good conversations like this with important information in it. And thanks to everybody, and we will see you soon.
Thank you, everybody.